Hello everybody. I've seen a lot of videos online of people doing what's called poor man's fiberglass, where you take paint and you paint over the fabric to create an exterior coating for your different projects. I'm going to be working on a teardrop coming up next month or so. I'm going to start on it, and it's something I decided I wanted to do for the exterior coating of that. So, like I said, I've seen some videos, I've read some posts. They're all kind of, they're not 100% in their detail of what to do, so I'm just going to do some experiments, and I thought that other people would like to maybe see the experimenting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use these shop rags because they're cheap and I have them laying around, and I have some high build binding primer that I'm going to use as my test paint. Now I just got this scrap piece of wood from my scrap wood pile, and like I said, I just pulled these rags off of the table over there, so I haven't done any kind of prep to them or nothing. I just want to see how forgiving this method is in this poor man's fiberglass. So I think what I'm going to first do is cut off these bindings along the edge just to give a smooth edge. These aren't wide enough to cover the whole piece of wood. I'm not even stretching it really. Maybe I'll stretch. Not sure how much I'm going to want to stretch it. I'll try to do half. I'll stretch a piece over half of it. So like that. And then maybe do two looser pieces here. I had got my iron out because I was gonna try ironing the fabric smooth, but I think really what I want to do in this first one is just do everything kind of raw and just see how, like I said, see how forgiving it is. Like if I don't do any prep at all, how bad is it going to be? Just as a first kind of step in my experimentation in this process. I haven't even sanded the wood. I haven't done anything. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and cut these bindings off, just scissors. Alright, there's a piece of fabric with all the ends cut off, little bindings around the edge. It's just an old shop towel, like I said. It's got a lot of fuzz on it. So I don't really think about how much fuzz these little shop towels have on them until you're concerned about it. We'll see how this is going to work. Alright, this Zinsser Peel Stop triple thick high build binding primer. I just had this laying around from another project, so I'll use what I got before I get anything special to experiment with. My paint stirrer, so I'm just going to stir it with this piece of plywood. Alright. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a coat of primer on here. Just going to coat about half of it. You know what? I'm going to make a mess on my table. I don't want to make a mess on my table. Should have thought of that. That was kind of a Martha Stewart move, wasn't it? Just happened to have some builder's paper sitting right there. Some builder's paper we prepared earlier. It was completely unplanned, but if you prefer to believe that I'm a prepared individual, I will not hold that against you. Thanks to the power of editing, you have no idea what just happened. Painting, painting, painting. Alright. You know, I'm just going to do like a thin coat for now. Because, I don't know, I'm just going to do it. Because I don't like painting. And alright, let's see. So the idea is that the paint is going to adhere the fabric to the plywood. And surprisingly, none of the paint, I mean, I'm getting paint from the edges, but none of the paint's really coming through the fabric. At least not this fabric. I don't know if maybe you used something really thin. That would be different. I don't know. I'm gonna just push it in there real good. I was gonna use a rolling thing, but I don't want to hunt it down. Laminate roller. Maybe when I'm actually building the teardrop, I'll consider doing, you know, like a laminate roller or something to kind of roll it out. Alright, well, it's on there. I'm not sure if I should let it dry or what. I'm just going to paint right on it. I ran the paint off the side there more because I used way too much paint than for anything else. I think this would probably work a lot better with a roller. You can already tell this old brush is gonna do me in. See all these paint lines or the brush marks. The roller would probably give a smoother coat. You know, another thing, I'm using this, I'm not cutting this at all. I just realized that. On a lot of the videos I read, people were doing like 50% water on water-based paints. So, I don't know, we'll see how it turns out. But it may not penetrate the fabric as well. With just straight paint. So what I'll do is, on this other side, when I do the two strips, I don't know, I think that stretching though actually worked out pretty good. But what I'll do on the other side, I'll go ahead and do the stretching again, but I'll do 50% coat of for the top. And this is really neat. I'm interested in how well. I mean, I'm not going to have anything nasty like these big divots on the exterior of my teardrop, but I'm just interested to see how well it covers up these bad spots on this old piece of plywood. that I've watched, not videos, but some of the tutorials I've watched or read, use Titebond as the base for this process. But a lot of the stuff that I've read also, it mostly says Titebond for if you're going over foam is required, but if you're going over wood, it's not really necessary. Because a lot of people use this same technique to waterproof things like boats and foam boats and stuff like that. So that's why I think they say the Titebond. But I think this is sticking pretty good, just to the wood with this primer. And obviously I don't know how it's going to do long term, but it's definitely interesting how it's turning out so far. The seam is going to be very telling for me. Might have to run some sandpaper along this after a few coats. Just don't know how much of this edge is going to show up. Definitely cut that one a bit straighter than I did the one underneath. So okay, I'm going to get a container of some sort, and I'm going to put, I'm going to cut this 50% water, and then I'll come back. Alright, so I mixed 50% water and 50% this primer, and it's it's really watery. I mean, I guess you'd imagine it's really watery because it's now half water. So you can definitely see how it's going to soak into the fabric a lot better. Let's see. Yeah, look at it soak in there. The other stuff kind of looked like it coated the surface more than anything. Yeah, I think this is a lot better because it's really penetrating the fabric, whereas this, it's just on top. It's still very wet. I'm going to let these dry, and not sure what my durability test is going to be. I'm definitely going to let this one dry and then come back and paint over it with the full strength primer. I'm not sure if I want to try to sand it or what. All right. So let's see. This thing says dry time. Dries to the touch in about 30 minutes. So we'll give it a half an hour. To dry, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, it's been a couple hours. I was going to wait just a half an hour, but it took a lot longer for it to dry to the point where I was comfortable putting another coat on. Got lots of fuzz balls here. I don't think it would be all that big of a problem if you use a different type of fabric as the coating. But these are real fuzzy already. But being that this is just a test, this is fine. It actually seems to be sticking pretty good. I don't want to pull them off just yet. I'm going to go ahead and put a top coat on both of them, both sides. I did one more. This one I did a little different. It's not dry yet because I just did it recently. But what I did is I just took it and I put it in the 50-50 mix of paint and water and just stuck it on top, and it really didn't adhere well at all to the wood. So at the very least I should have done a top coat of paint to stick it to. But just soaking it in the wood, or soaking it in the 50-50 mixture and then dropping it on, it doesn't seem to be the best way. Putting it on and then putting a thick coat on top of it seems to be better. Alright, so we're going to do top coat. And based on how well the paint is sticking to this, initially I feel like it would be fine just to do this without, you know, not doing the type on method. But I don't know. I mean, having the extra stick from the type on would probably be pretty good, actually. Or extra safety. Extra durability, I mean, not safety. It's obviously going to take a lot to coat a piece of fabric like this to make it look good. But really, appearances isn't exactly what I'm going for on this particular test. I just want to see how well the different application techniques work out. As far as appearances go, I definitely wouldn't go with anything red, or probably even any light color, because you can see how the red still shows up very clearly. Down here where it had the bad spots of the wood, it's still really clear if you look at it that there are bad spots, but only if you're looking for the bad spots. So that's pretty good. You can't even tell that the rest of the wood was rough. All you see is the texture from the fabric. Alright, now I'm just going to leave this to dry, probably overnight. I may throw another coat on here in a couple hours, just because. You know, we'll let it dry overnight, and then tomorrow I'll try to rip it off and see how well it stuck. Alright, so it's a day later. This is completely dry. It's very stiff and hard, and it feels pretty good actually. And it looks like if I was to paint over it again, I'd probably seal off a lot more of that. This was the option that I said wasn't good at all, where I soaked the rag in the mixture of paint and water. But having it today, looking at it, that part I had peeled off yesterday, but this part, it's sticking really good after a day. So it's not as bad of an option as I had thought. But I still think this is going to be better. I mean, you can see you have to put some effort into pulling that one off. So set that to the side. Now, got this reversed, but this is the way I did it yesterday. This side is the side where it's full strength primer underneath, full strength primer on top. This side has the full strength primer underneath and the 50-50 mix of primer and water on the top. I hit it with some spray paint just to get rid of the red color, so that's why it's all nice and white instead of seeing the red from the cloth showing through. So that's actually pretty promising too, in that whatever fabric you use, you know, it ends up getting covered up pretty good. So, moment of truth. I'll start with the side that I started on. Grab the corner. See how well it. Alright, the fabric's ripping rather than coming off in a sheet like the other one did. But this is really tough to pull off. It doesn't seem to be any harder though than I've had with that one. Oh, but the further you get in. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good stuck on there. That adhered really well. And the cloth is, it's not completely saturated. I mean, you can definitely see that there's a lot of cloth that didn't get filled with primer. But then again, this was the full strength primer on top. So let's see this other side. Alright, so it's about the same on the edge there. I guess the key with these is to make sure you get the edges real good. Alright, well that seems to be coming off easier. I don't know if it's the wood or what. But if you look back here, it sticks really well, and it's even pulling off parts of the wood itself. But it sticks really well to the wood, and if you look at the fabric, you can see a lot more of the fabric is coated in paint. It's soaked into the fabric a lot better with that 50-50 mix than it did on this side. Where there's a lot of, basically the stuff on this side looks to be just the primer that it picked up from the board itself. Whereas on this side you can see that it looks like it's in the cloth. So doing that 50-50 mix to soak into the fabric is definitely a benefit. As you want this fabric to be permeated with whatever paint you're using, because that's your barrier to protect your wood underneath from moisture and stuff like that. Now, something else I should have showed before I started ripping all this off. This is the seam, and looking at it straight on, you know, it's kind of difficult to see exactly what's going on here. I mean, obviously we know this is a seam, so that's why it looks like that. But it could just be a deformation of the wood or something like that. It doesn't. What I'm trying to say is it doesn't stand out as a seam. So there's probably a way to do this that'll make it look, you know, look good. Like if I was to cut these edges better, and maybe that could be a racing stripe or something, and it won't stand out so bad. Just out of curiosity though, let's see how well surprised at how well it's stuck to the side, because I didn't even really pay much attention to the sides. I want to see this. I want to try to pull the seam apart. It just comes right apart. So it didn't stick. It didn't stick to each other very well at all. That might be a place where the tight bond excels probably on the seams. So I think the paint by itself is probably adequate, but for my build, I think I'm going to go ahead and do. I think for my build, what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to do tight bond, base coat, and then either one layer of tight bond 50-50 mixed with water on top, or just start with 50-50 paint. I'll have to think about it a little more, but overall I think this was a good experiment. It's definitely a proof of concept, because this one here, it really feels like it's got, I mean, looking at it, the pores are sealed up. This would be a good barrier to protect your wood surface. In my case, it's going to be a teardrop. It's going to be good.